So Richmond happened, and I have some pretty interesting things to say, both about the Xfinity race and about the Cup race. I know this is like a first because usually Richmond races don't give me like a lot of topics of discussion, but these two races were, or this weekend overall was actually pretty interesting, even if the racing product was largely the same. But yeah, let's just get right into it. So for the Xfinity race, the main storyline I wanted to see was Roger Caruth making his NASCAR debut. I've been following iRacing since 2016, so of course I know who Roger Caruth is. I also like this his story uh, of how he got into NASCAR and stuff. He qualified on time, which is pretty incredible because uh, that 44 car, I don't think it was in owner points. He needed to qualify on time, so uh, he did just that. He ran top 20 early. He raced John Hunter Nemechek hard, who was leading in stage one. He managed to race him a little bit. He managed to hold his own for a while until he eventually got lapped down. He finished 24th, 2 laps down, but I'll say it was a pretty solid debut. I was definitely impressed by him. But he wasn't the guy or like the driver of the day to me. The driver of the day was, funnily enough, another driver that came from the iRacing scene, Parker Retzlaff. His second ever, in his second ever Xfinity start, he qualified in the top 10 once again, but this time he's staying in the top 10 in the long run. He basically stayed in the top 10 all race long. He finished 7th in stage 1, he finished 10th in stage 2, and this is despite having a garbage pit crew. Like, I know that RSS Racing being like a small team, they don't have the resources like a JR Motorsports or a Joe Gibbs Racing or a Colleague Racing they have. But I did not expect his pit crew to be this garbage. He even got a penalty for an uncontrolled tire on one of his crew members. I'm not gonna say incompetency, but I definitely expected better. Like, if you're gonna make a slow pit stop, if you're having a slow pit stop, like, the last thing you want to do is make mistakes because you don't want to ruin a good day from him. He still came back to finish 10th though. Again, he stayed in the top 10 for most of the day. He was definitely a top 10 car. Other guys that definitely caught my attention throughout the race. Noah Gragson, he had brake issues all race long. He pitted after finishing second in stage 1, and from that point on, he was just a non-factor. A brake rotor came off of his car in stage 2 that was like on fire. He got lapped down towards the end of the stage. He got the free pass, but it didn't matter. He got lapped anyways in the end. He finished 1 lap down in 21st, so overall, it was a really rough day for him. Another driver that really struggled a lot, surprisingly, was Ryan Preece. He was lapped before stage 1, and I know he was driving like a BJ McLeod car. He was wearing the number 5, but this was a Stewart-Haas Racing prepared car, similar to Cole Custer at Fontana and Coda. This was a car prepared by Stewart-Haas Racing, so I expected Ryan Preece to be a factor and be in the top 10. He got lapped down before stage 1. He didn't even get the free pass up until stage 2. And if it wasn't for that one caution that Noah Gragson brought out, I don't know if that race, I don't know if he ever gets the free pass. But he eventually finished back in the top. He eventually got back in the top 10 somehow, some way. But his car just wasn't good in the long run. He ended up finishing 16th. And now, as for John Hunter Nemechek, he was in this race. He was racing number 18. He was flawless. He was elite in stage 1. He opened up like a 5 to 6 second lead over the second place car, which was I believe it was Graxon. Yeah, it could have been Allmendinger. No, I said Graxon finished second in the stage. Now I'm second guessing myself. Um, but yeah, he had a 6 second lead over the second place car. There were a lot of pit road penalties too. I mentioned Parker Retzlaff having a loose wheel penalty, but also Daniel Hemrick and Josh Berry were among some of the notable drivers for getting pit road speeding penalties. They both managed to bounce back and get in the top 10. Daniel Hemrick especially, since it looked in stage 1 that he was going to go a lap down. It looked like he was almost lapped by John Hunter Nemechek. Fortunately, he stayed on the lead lap and eventually came back in the top 10. His car just came to life in stage 3. Another driver that came to life in stage 3, or rather later on in the race, was Ty Gibbs. He started from the pole and he led the first like 10 or so laps, and then John Hunter Nemechek just ran away with stage 1. And then in stage 2, I don't know what adjustment they did to Ty Gibbs' car for stage 2, but after that adjustment, he was just able to not only keep pace with John Hunter Nemechek, but he was also able to pass him and win stage 2 for himself. That was amazing. And from that point on, stage 3 was definitely a battle between these two guys. The 54 versus the 18. This battle really gave me Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin vibes from that race, that amazing finish 10 years ago where Kurt just edged out Denny. And now we have, 10 years later, we have the 54 versus the 18, round 2. That wasn't also the only battle. There was also the Dash for Cash battle between Sam Mayer and Allmendinger, which Sam Mayer eventually ended up winning. Career best 3rd place finish for him, and also Dash for Cash. That's definitely going to help his confidence, by the way. And finally, it came down to the last lap. After like the final 10 laps of them running like side by side or like bumper to bumper, it looked like John Hunter Nemechek had cleared him. But then, of course, Ty Gibbs was going to use his bumper because that's just how Ty Gibbs is. He did a bump and run in stage 1, not right at stage 1, entering turn 1 to get like even with them side by side. And then in stage 3, and then stage 3. I don't know why I say stages. I don't know what's wrong with me, but turn 3. Entering turn 3, he just went way high, and since John Hunter Nemechek was to his outside, he basically just sent him wide, and he went on to win the race. And again, this sparked controversy. This was a very controversial finish because, a lot of people, they just don't like Ty Gibbs because of his privileged background and the fact that he hasn't had to work for anything in his life, again, which I do not agree with that line of logic. I don't think you should hate on a driver simply because they come from a more privileged background than you. I think that's stupid. But anyways, this was a very unpopular move, especially since we're coming off of another similar move at COTA, where Ross Chastain basically sent AJ Allmendinger into Bowman, and Allmendinger spun out, and Bowman it basically sent him smooth sailing for the win. And a lot of people said Ross Chastain's move for the win was justified, but then they turn around and say Ty Gibbs' move, which was less egregious because he did not spin John Hunter Nemechek to win. John Hunter Nemechek still finished second in that race. Allmendinger, he didn't even get to cross the finish line. I think he finished like last car on the lead lap in like 33rd or something like that. Yeah, this, compared to what Ty Gibbs did today, what Ross Chastain did last week was much more egregious. And this is coming from someone that doesn't have a problem with Ross Chastain. I did not have a problem with what Ross Chastain did. I saw what Ross Chastain did last week. It was justified from my point of view. So when I look at what Ty Gibbs did, it's like, come on, we've seen worse stuff than this in short track racing, and people are just whining for because somebody just sent him wide. Now again, I know it's a teammate, and some people have some feelings over. It's okay to do it if it's not a teammate, but then again, it's the last lap of the race. There are no teammates in the last lap, and again, like I said, Ty Gibbs did not spin him out. John Hunter Nemechek still managed to cross the finish line right behind the 54. So again, that's all I gotta say. That's just short track racing. What Chastain did was more egregious in comparison. What Ty Gibbs did is nothing. Also, I just gotta put this out there. John Hunter Nemechek is no saint when it comes to this type of stuff. He did the same thing to Cole Custer. Actually, he did something even worse to Cole Custer at Mosport in 2016. Now, I know that was 6 years ago, and John Hunter Nemechek has matured. But I'm just bringing this up to show you guys that John Hunter Nemechek, if he was in this situation, he probably would have done the same thing. Especially when you look at the truck race at Atlanta a few weeks ago. He is not a team player. During the Atlanta race, he had a choice to go between Chandler Smith and Corey Heim. He decided to go with Corey Heim, again, because he is a teammate, but Chandler Smith needed the win more than Corey Heim did. Because Chandler Smith, he's racing full-time in the truck series. Corey Heim is racing part-time. He's a rookie racing part-time. He's not running for the truck series title, at least not yet. And yet, John Hunter Nemechek decided to go with him instead of Chandler Smith, who needed the win more than him. So, again, just goes to show you that John Hunter Nemechek, he is not a team player when it comes to stuff like this. So I believe he would have done the same with if the roles were reversed. And I'm talking like, and I'm not talking like this like I'm just some sort of John Hunter Nemechek hater. Like, I like the guy. He is my favorite truck series driver, as a matter of fact. But I mean, I'm not going to be blind to the stuff that he does in the past. He's had a history of doing this in the past, so he's not above doing that. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't have a right to complain, because, I mean, from his perspective, he got screwed out of a win, and I also agree with that. No one likes to get a bump and run out of a win. Hell, not even the most chill guy like the Chase Elliott's or of the world. They're not gonna take very kindly to you just using your bumper to run you out of the racetrack. And to be fair, a lot of people are saying that, and again, this is another thing I want to mention. There are a lot of people that say that Ty Gibbs just did that on purpose and stuff like that. No, he was racing John Hunter Nemechek hard, but he just got way too hot into turn 3. He got way too hot there, and he ended up using him as lifting. His teammate just happened to be at his outside. So that argument of people saying that he used his teammate to get through the corner, that's false. That's just false, because if his teammate wasn't there, Ty Gibbs would have blown the corner, and he wouldn't have, and he would have finished second, and John Hunter would have won. So again, I do not understand this argument of Ty Gibbs doing it on purpose. He did not do it on purpose. He just blew the corner and he lifted going to turn 3. John Hunter Nemechek happened to be outside of him, and again, that's where the controversy lies. I don't think he did it on purpose, and I know he said this when the Ryan Sieg incident happened, that if I really wanted to wreck you, you wouldn't have run another lap. And I mean, it's true. If you have the intention to wreck somebody, if your intention was to wreck somebody, that person would not have made it across the finish line in one piece at the very least. So again, I do not understand the discourse behind the. Again, some of that is justified because eventually it will come back to bite him. Like back in 2015, it did the same thing happened with Joe Logano, that it came back to bite him at the worst possible time. You don't see drivers retaliate against Ty Gibbs. That's because they're waiting for the playoffs to start
to start just beating and banging against him. So yeah, while I do not feel anything wrong about what Ty Gibbs did, while I don't feel Ty Gibbs did anything wrong necessarily, I still hope that he knows what he's getting into, because that may screw him over. That style of racing may screw him over, especially in this playoff format. That style of racing may screw him over like it did with Joey Logano in 2015. Now, it looks like Ty Gibbs has said it time and time again that he knows he's going to, that he knows he's not making, any friends, any new friends out there, and that if he and that if anyone were to retaliate against him, that would be, he says that it would be justified and that he wouldn't be angry because he knows they owe him one, basically. And then again, that's what I like about Ty Gibbs. I mean, those are the qualities back in the day that drew me to Joey Logano. And I see a lot of, funnily enough, I see a lot of Joey Logano in Ty Gibbs. I say funnily enough because he is touted as the best prospect to come into NASCAR since Joey Logano himself. So I can see a lot of similarities between him and Joey and growing up. I know he will mature. He still has a lot to learn. He has a talent, but he will mature someday. But both of them, I believe this lawful neutral mentality of I'm gonna race you clean until the last lap. I think that mentality can resonates a lot within both Joey Logano and Ty Gibbs, and then again, I appreciate that guys that race you hard, but they're not gonna wreck you. All they're gonna do is just do a simple bump and run on you to try and win the race. So again, what Ty Gibbs did is not as egregious as what most people think it is. Just because he did it to a teammate on the last lap, again, there are no teammates in the last lap in NASCAR. You guys gotta understand that there are no team orders on the last lap, people. Now for the Cup race, this is a race I was really looking forward to, since Richmond hasn't been one of the more beloved tracks by the fan base, and I really wanted to see how the next gen car will race, since some of the earlier tests of this new car, they were done at Richmond. This was also an important race for Toyota, as this has been Joe Gibbs Racing's best track, and Toyota and JGR have been on a slow start. So, I expected JGR to have a bounce back race. I also had this expectation of it's not gonna be as clear cut that JGR may be the best team, since they've been struggling out of the gate to start the season. They might shake off some rust. So this race would actually, I felt this race would be a bit more wide open than the past Richmond races. Of course, JGR would still be a factor, and they were. But there were also a few other surprises. The most surprising one being Ryan Blaney starting on the pole, his third pole of the season. Richmond was his worst track too, and he just ran away with stage one and led, I don't know, I think he led the most laps in this race, 100 something. But yeah, he started on the pole and he was like a top 5 car all race long. He's also the only driver, I believe. If he's not the only, he's like one of the few, but I'm pretty sure he is the only driver to lead laps in all 7 races so far this season. Also, like I said, he ran away with stage 1, which, to be fair, he was pretty tame. It was all about saving tires, since NASCAR has this new rule now of the teams must start with the same set of tires that they qualified in. So, and with Richmond being a track where tire fall off is very noticeable. Again, I just love tracks with big tire fall off. Yeah. So, speaking of Toyota, while Joe Gibbs Racing had a really good day, the same cannot be said for 2311. Kurt Busch on lap 10, he had a fuel pickup issue that put him basically out of contention. He still finished running, but he was like 100 laps down. He was pretty much a non-factor. And once again, because Kurt Busch is in the playoff cut line, he's not in the he was above the cut line entering this race, but he hadn't won a race yet. So once again, the playoff picture will shake up once again, which is pretty crazy since there's still no clear-cut best driver this season. That that every week the playoff seems to shuffle. It seems to shuffle more than last season because once again, at this point last season we had 7 different winners in the first 7 races. This was also the case in Richmond. We had a new winner. We'll get to that. We'll get to that winner much later on. But yeah, there's no clear-cut best driver this season. At this point of the season, at least. Now again, 2021, last season, we also had a similar situation where we didn't know who the best driver was. Last season was, some people were saying Hamlin, some people were saying Truex, other people were saying Larson. And then once the summer stretch rolled around, it became pretty clear cut who the best driver was. And we all know who it was. So maybe at the summer stretch, during the summer stretch, we might, as the season goes on, we might just be able to tell who are the real contenders and who the real best drivers of the season are. So, however, it's still pretty crazy that the playoff picture just shuffles. A guy wins, a guy below the cut line wins, and 3 new guys get into the points position, and then 4 other guys just fall below the cut line. Yeah, I feel like this is way more apparent this season thanks to this new Gen 7 car throwing a curveball at this whole teams. Once again, the outside lane was king in the long run. The inside lane was pretty workable in the short runs, but in the long runs, the outside lane was pretty king. Richmond was also a race that featured a lot of comers and goers with a lot of strategy, a lot of pit strategy, especially in stage 2, because stage 1 was pretty short, so it was all about saving tires. But stage 2, this is where we started to see this 1-stop versus 2-stop strategy. In stage 2, Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin were the ones that did the 1-stop strategy in stage 2. Christopher Bell ended up finishing 2nd in the stage. He hung on pretty well. Hamlin didn't do so hot, finishing 14th, and he didn't score any stage points. And to be fair, Hamlin was actually the worst JGR car until that final pit stop, which we'll get into that. But yeah, Truex won stage 2. He was the best Toyota in the field by far. And the action really picked up too, in part 2 the different strategies, again, comers and goers, and we saw a lot more passing. And then in stage 3, we started seeing some beating and banging. So basically, the action picked up as the race went on, and that's the beauty of long green flag runs, of races with long green flag runs and tire fall off like Richmond. That's where comers and goers and strategy, and this being a crew chief's mental race, and pit strategy and stuff like that. We also started seeing a few cautions for accidents. Cody Ware, Austin Cindric, a lot of more bumping and banging too. Also, the tire fall-off was pretty notable in the short runs. This is something I noticed in stage 3 with that strategy that William Byron was doing with him, because during the final caution, which was for an Austin Cindric spin, William Byron and Daniel Suarez, they stayed out, and they both restarted 1-2. They were on 10-lap older tires, and Truex immediately took 2nd place away from Suarez, and he started gaining and gaining on Byron. But then, 10 laps later, Byron was able to keep up with Truex. So it's with just 10 lap older tires, the tire fall off is pretty evident in the short run, but in the long run, you're able to keep up because they're largely on the same. That both the tires from the leader and the 2nd place car behind him, they're both worn, so it's not big. It's not a big deal. Then in the final pit stops, once again, this came down to a 1-stop versus 2-stop strategy, and once again, the 2-stop strategy won. I really thought William Byron was gonna could possibly win this race because Truex, he was gaining on him. He was like the best car or like the first car with on that two-stop strategy, and he was gaining on him. And then in the final few laps, it's like he stagnated and stuff like that. And then Hamlin and Harvick were like gaining on them. Like in that final pit stop, Hamlin and Harvick just made some, I don't know what adjustment they made on Hamlin and Harvick's car for them to just fly in. But like that final run was just amazing to watch. Just watching Hamlin and Harvick just hack away. Hamlin hacking away. That's funny. But watching Hamlin and Harvick just hack away at Byron's lead, and also Truex as well, because once again Truex just burned his tires trying to catch up to Byron, and he just had nothing to him in the end, it feels like, which was pretty disappointing too, because I thought that Truex was gonna win this race. It was gonna be close, but I just thought that the two-stop strategy was gonna prevail, even with the shortened stage 3 due to the cautions. However, another guy that could have been in the mix as well if it wasn't for some bullshit NASCAR calling, for some bullshit NASCAR officiating, was Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch had a top 5 car all race long. And he was struggling too, once again, because Kyle Busch always seems to struggle every week. But also, something seems to happen every week to Kyle Busch, and he just seems to get screwed over for whatever reason, but this has got to be the most egregious like thing to get screwed over for so far this season. It's just unbelievable how unlucky he has been. So here's the thing. Kyle Busch, on one of the pit stops, I believe this was 200 laps ago, mind you, they put some tape on the grill of the car, which, according to the new rules regarding like the Gen 7 car, it is illegal now. But the thing is, the team intended to put the tape on the brake dot of the car, not on the grill. And again, the grill and the brake dot are like very close to each other, so it's pretty like, how to put it, it's pretty kind of understandable that they made that error. It's still an error nonetheless, and NASCAR, again, rules are the rules, and I expected them, you'd expect NASCAR to penalize them immediately, to notice that they did that, and they will be penalized immediately. But then NASCAR just didn't. They waited 200 laps until they showed Kyle Busch's grill on camera, and then just to black flag him. Like, really. If Kyle Busch was penalized like 200 laps earlier, he would have had a chance at a comeback, but with like 50 laps to go, this happened with less than 50 to go, he just had no chance at a recovery. He just really got screwed over. And once again, this is just another example of NASCAR's incompetence when it comes to officiating. If you see a guy doing, if you see a guy that or a team, whatever, whoever it is, doing something that is against the rules, you catch them now instead of waiting until later in the race when that mistake is going to screw them over. Yes, rules are the rules. Yes, Kyle Busch deserved to be penalized, but he deserved to be penalized at the moment, not at the end of the race. And not only is this bullshit limited to NASCAR, because this wasn't just NASCAR's fault. This was like 50% of NASCAR to blame. The other 50% goes to Ben Bashir, because according to him, he knew that the tape was on the grill, but he thought that NASCAR wouldn't notice, and he figured that maybe it was on debris. Maybe he got on the grill due to some debris and stuff like that. Yeah, Joe Gibbs, the team owner, Joe Gibbs, said in the press conference after the race that he said that he was going to talk to NASCAR to make sure that everything was, to make sure that the penalty was a fair penalty, because he argues that, well, maybe it was a piece of debris, maybe the tape was a piece of debris, but the way this whole situation is sounding, it sounds like Ben Bashir, like he tried to make like a big brain play, he tried to be slick, and he just got caught in 4K, and well deservedly so. Once again, this was a crew chief's race, and Ben Bacher's decision to not to try and cheat the system and fail miserably at it. That's just once again another example of how a crew chief can really screw over an entire race. And I am just so angry at how this all turned out. Kyle Busch had a top 5 car. I don't think he would have won, but with how Hamlin and Harvick were clicking off laps, Kyle Busch could have been right there with them. He could have finished top 5, maybe in the top 3 too, maybe contend for the win. I don't know if he would. Again, I don't know if he would have won, but a top 5 would have been so much better than just settling for a 9th place finish, because it just feels like nothing can go right for Kyle Busch this season. It just doesn't seem like it. So anyways, in the final few laps, with Truex just not having anything to pass William Byron, it came down to Hamlin and Harvick and trying to catch up. So this became a 4-car race between Byron, Truex, Hamlin, and Harvick. Eventually, with 5 laps to go, Hamlin just passed Byron, and then he managed to hold off Harvick with a little help from lap traffic, and he managed to score the win at Richmond. A guy who scored 0 stage points and was like the worst Joe Gibbs racing car like at the halfway of the race. Even Hamlin said it himself that Richmond, one of his best tracks, he felt like he was a top 15 car at best. And to be fair, that looked like the case for most of the race up until the final pit stop. He was on that 2-stop strategy on the final leg of the race. Especially since they saved that set of tires. He was on that 1-stop strategy in stage 2, and then in stage 3 he managed to he kept an extra set of tires for him to do that, like that 2-stop strategy in stage 3. That was amazing. But another thing that was amazing was just his crew making a magic adjustment or something like that. I don't know what they did, but that was just an amazing adjustment that they made at the end of the race to pass William Byron and score the win. And that win just turned his entire season around. He hadn't scored a top 10 at all so far this season. And that one win, just turned his entire season around. And that's the beauty of this playoff format. Again, I'm not a fan of the playoffs, but I can appreciate the beauty of this playoff format, of how one win can turn your entire season around. Like, you look at Eric Almirola last season. He was just having a miserable season outside of that one New Hampshire win. But his season is not considered a disappointment because of that New Hampshire win. Because, again, that win was what got him into the playoffs, and he finished top 15 in points because of that win. So, once again, while you may have a bad you may have a bad season, but as long as you score those wins to get you deeper into the playoffs and get you in a higher points position, hopefully, your season may not be considered like a disappointment at all. Again, I'm not a fan of this format, but it's amazing how the perception of Hamlin's season changed from maybe he goes winless to, oh, now he's in the playoffs, watch out for Hamlin. He's gonna that win is gonna give him a huge momentum that could carry him over for the rest of the regular season. And that's gonna be that way. He's also the 7th different winner this season. And once again, there is still no clear-cut best driver, because a guy that Hamlin was far from the best driver in this race, or this season for that matter. So once again, the title of best driver this season is still wide open. Also, the old guys finally win. That streak was snapped at 12 straight wins. Yeah, after 12 races, the old guys finally win. And it's not just a 30-year-old driver that is over 30 years old. It's a 41-year-old who won this race. And Harvick, who is like in his late 40s, I don't know if he's like 40. I'll say he's around 48. I don't know, I may be wrong. But Harvick is like in his late 40s, almost 50 years old. and he finished second right behind Hamlin. So once again, the old guys are back in. The old guys, they finally got the leg up on those younger guys, because Hamlin and Harvick, they got by Byron towards the end of the race with the right strategy. Once again, Chris Gabehart and Rodney Childers, just two amazing crew chiefs. It's no wonder that in a crew chiefs race, their cars finished 1-2 with an amazing, with both of them being like top 10, top 15 cars at best. I mean, Harvick was a top 10 car, but the fact that Rodney Childers and Chris Gabehart managed to give the respective drivers, managed to give an adjustment to the respective drivers' cars for them to just charge through the field and finish 1-2. Again, this race was a crew chiefs race, and it just goes to show you Richmond is not a bad track. Again, I'm giving this race a solid B, and I'm not gonna give it a B plus because again. The action was good towards the end, especially in the second half of the race. Like the first half, especially stage 1, was just a bit stale. Just saving your tires. There was not much action going on. But once the long green flag runs and the pit stops and the strategies kicked in, that's when the action picked up, and it really made for a really fun race. It just goes to show you, you do not need crashes and bumping and banging at short tracks to make a short track race like Richmond exciting. Richmond is not like that. Richmond is more of a more technical short track based on strategy, where tire fall off is pretty good. It's like a mini version of Atlanta before the replay. It's like if Atlanta was a short track, and I'm not talking about the Atlanta of today. I'm talking about more like the Atlanta before it was repaved, just to give you an idea. So again, Hamlin, of course, he is the driver of the day to me. That amazing comeback he had is to not only win the race but also turn his whole season around. And the context leading up to this season, leading up to how his season had gone so far, and the fact that he won, and again, just winning solves everything. That's all I gotta say. He is the driver of the day for me. Definitely. Also, another guy that I really wanted to mention, Brad Keselowski. This is the best that Keselowski has looked so far this season outside of the Daytona 500. He was a consistent top 10 car. He scored a few stage points. Again, that's what he needs to do to get back into the top 30 in points. After he gets into the top 30 in points, then he can look to win races with Talladega coming up, races like Martinsville and Talladega coming up, which are like his strong suits. He can also look forward to another super speedway race like Atlanta and the season finale at Daytona. So Keselowski has a few chances to win, but and I believe he's gonna get top 30 in points. So that 100-point penalty. Yes, it was a major setback for him, and he basically puts him in a must-win situation. But we're seeing crazier things happen, so I wouldn't put it past him for a driver that is way below the cut line to win a race. I mean, this is why this playoff format is like it is. It's all about winning.
Now then, the general sentiment around this weekend was that Richmond is a bad racetrack. Why are we getting 2 races at Richmond this year, and so on and so forth? And to that I say, again, aren't you the same NASCAR fans that want more short tracks, yet when we go to Richmond, you guys say that Richmond doesn't deserve 2 races a year? Bro, Richmond is a short track. Make it make sense. That's just, once again, NASCAR fans being hypocritical as always. They say they want one thing, but then when they get that thing, they're not pleased. They're not pleased with how it turned out. Now, I get it. Richmond is a short track, but it's not your typical cup of tea, but it's not your typical short track of a bumping and banging like Bristol and Martinsville. There's not a lot of carnage at Richmond, especially in recent years. It's one of the more technical short tracks, if you could say, a track where where tire wear matters and the like. And I ask yourself, is that a bad thing? Sure, you guys go to short tracks and bumping and banging and the bump and run is very associated with short tracks. Hell, the Xfinity race ended on a bump and run, kind of. But my point is, Richmond is a different cup of tea to other short tracks like Bristol and Martinsville. But that doesn't make it bad. Different does not equal bad. Richmond is a good racetrack in its own right. The problem is that NASCAR fans, they think that a good racetrack has to be an entertaining racetrack, and this once again goes down to the culture of entertainment of NASCAR. And again, this is a very this is something I've talked to death on this channel about the entertainment aspect of NASCAR and how NASCAR is seen as more entertaining than anything. But Richmond being a bad track, that's not true. That's just not true. Richmond is a good track. It's just not as entertaining as Bristol or Martinsville. But just because it's not as entertaining, that doesn't make it a bad racetrack. It's just different.
Hell, the Cup race had a pretty good finish, and yeah, the first half wasn't the action. There wasn't that much action, but in the second half, once the green flag pit stops and the strategy kicked in, this race was pretty entertaining. And I believe that's the sentiment of like most NASCAR fans around, is that Richmond is, well, it is a different track than Bristol or Martinsville, and it's not as entertaining. I mean, I can agree to that. Again, it took a while for the action to pick up, whereas at Bristol or Martinsville, the action is from lap 1 immediately. There is a lot of action, but that doesn't make Richmond a bad racetrack. It just makes it different. Not all short tracks are beating and banging, and not all short tracks that don't produce beating and banging, that doesn't make it a bad short track. Richmond was a good short track, and this race was a perfect example of that. But to all of you short track lovers that didn't like this race for some reason, hey, be glad it's over. We're going to Martinsville and Bristol Dirt next up. April is going to be a fun month. The fact that Richmond, I personally like this Richmond race, and now we're heading to Martinsville, Bristol Dirt at night, and Talladega. Yeah, April is a really good month for NASCAR racing, and I am so hyped to see what this Gen 7 car will produce at each of these racetracks.